Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone here from Talking Films Online, TFO.
Your device is ready.
Sebastian, you will have to mute yourself till I introduce you. Sebastian, please mute
You're now
yourself.
connected to Boatstone.
Could you mute yourself, please?
Geeta, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone here from Talking Films Online, TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. Since then, TFO has had uninterrupted discussions on films from all over the world every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. On some occasions, filmmakers, editors, and cinematographers have also joined our sessions. Aparna Sen, Amol Palekar, Girish Kasarvalli, and Adur Gopalakrishnan, to name a few. We have held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and a lecture series in the university departments. Tonight's discussion on Adur Gopalakrishnan's VIDHEYAN will be led by V. Sebastian. Sebastian teaches philosophy at Jnanadeepa Institute of Philosophy and Theology, Pune. He has done his postgraduate studies at the University of Louvain, Belgium, and a doctorate from the Humanities Department at Mysore University. Sebastian has been teaching for the past 25 years. During his student days, he participated in the Narmada Andolan from 1986 to 1989. Apart from presenting papers in various universities and colleges, he has published research articles in various journals. The areas of research include history, anthropology, politics, and social philosophy. Welcome to you, Sebastian. Over to you.
Please. What is all this thing? Hello? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see the screen as well.
Okay. So is it sharing the screen?
Yeah, it's sharing.
Okay. So good evening and thank you very much for this opportunity to share something about the VIDHEYAN. So I shall be basically sharing the a PowerPoint through that.
You're now connected to Boatstone.
This how do I move to?
PowerPoint?
Mhm.
Okay.
Click on your next slide, it will show. Just
Oh, how do I?
Are you getting it?
Okay.
Are they getting full screen? Just ask them.
Are you getting the full screen now?
no.
Just one moment.
Yeah.
Are you getting now? Full screen?
Yes, yes. Yes,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Okay, so VIDHEYAN by Adur Gopalakrishnan, exploring the structure of power and subjection. So this is the basic structure of what you're going to share. Introduction, then first very short historical context of the film, then second is broad narrative outlines of VIDHEYAN, third symbolisms, very, very short slides there. Okay, conclusion. So VIDHEYAN is 1994, is a Malayalam film directed by Adur Gopalakrishnan. The name of the film, VIDHEYAN, is usually translated as Servile. Adur Gopalakrishnan has explored a variety of themes, emotions, values, and perspective through his films. VIDHEYAN is based on a story by the novelist Paul Zachariah entitled Bhaskara Patelar and My Life. This film has been screened in many film festivals and won several national and international awards. So here you can see the festivals, London, Nantes, Brussels, San Francisco, so many, and awards, yes, it has won many awards. So now, just a word about historical context of the film. The film VIDHEYAN is located within a historical context. The context of the film is the landlord system known as Patelar in South Karnataka, bordering Kerala. During the British colonial period, the Patelars collected taxes for the government. They also acted as judges in local disputes. Because of their power, Patelars were respected and also feared in many villages. Many of the Patelars also abused their power. The film is set in the early 1960s. Now, broad narrative outline of VIDHEYAN. So the film opens with the encounter between Patelar and submissive Tommy. Tommy is a settler from Kerala. That's a very common thing in many parts of Kerala, especially in the Western Ghats. Many people from Kerala has settled, so they're known as the settlers. So his name is Tommy. Patelar is seated in front of a toddy shop. Patelar, who wields power, abuses Tommy physically and psychologically. Patelar takes control of him. This film goes on to explore the dynamics of power and the surrender of freedom. Tommy becomes increasingly attached to his master. This attachment to power has terrible consequences. Tommy becomes an extension of his master's will and his desire. The effect of Tommy's attachment, which borders on slavery, is terrifying. There are multiple levels in which the freedom is surrendered by Tommy. Omina is Tommy's wife. She loves Tommy, but circumstances force her to submit to the sexual desires of Patelar. And Tommy allows this to happen. Tommy is unable to say no and prevent the abuse of power that is forced on him. Tommy accepts domination and abuse of power as something natural. As the Jewish political thinker Hannah Arendt points out, in order to exercise absolute power, one also needs submissive subjects. This is an extremely important theme of this movie. It is interesting to see in the film how the power and domination is detested and resisted in silence by Tommy. Tommy is angry about the situation, but unable or unwilling to do anything about it. Then subjection is slowly accepted, and Tommy learns to live with it. Tommy accept the subjugation and the subsequent loss of freedom as something normal and as a fact. Now, there's an important transformation taking place in Tommy's subjectivity. He finds it hard to live without subjection. The American philosopher Judith Butler calls this form of subjection and surrender of freedom passionate attachment. It is precisely this passionate attachment to unfreedom that makes subjection wretched and pathetic. At one point in the film, Tommy could have pushed Patelar into the well and killed him. Tommy could have made himself free, but he can't bring himself to do it. Tommy is worried how he would live without Patelar. Tommy asks, who would be there for me then? Adur portrays Tommy's powerlessness in subtle manner. In one scene, Tommy holds his wife in his arms and tells her, you smell of Patelar's scent, but you are mine only. One day, I will buy you the scent. In another scene, Tommy tries to console Omana, who cries. Patelar kills his wife, Saroja, and wants to run away into the forest. Tommy wants to accompany Patelar. Omana cries because Tommy is leaving her in order to accompany Patelar. Tommy tries to console her. Don't cry. I am there for Patelar. She's actually crying for Tommy. This is an example of total negation of oneself. Now, Patelar kills his wife, Saroja. There's no one to help him now. Patelar then runs away into the forest with Tommy. Like a pet, Tommy follows Patelar into the forest. Saroja's brothers go in search of Patelar. They find him in the forest and they kill him. When Patelar gets killed, Tommy runs into the forest shouting, Omana, Patelar is dead. Tommy runs through the forest into what looks like his freedom. But does he really become free? Or will he wait for another master? That's the end of the film. Now, very briefly, the film VIDHEYAN is the study of the psychology and structure of power. The basic message of the psychological study of Patelar is that power cannot exist without submission. When attachment becomes obsessive, power tends to become oppressive. This is an extremely important point made in the film. I read that again. When attachment becomes obsessive, power tends to become oppressive. Now, the last part, symbolisms in VIDHEYAN. Adur Gopalakrishnan is a director who uses powerful symbolism in his films. I shall point out 3 such interesting, powerful instances of symbolism used by Adur in this film, VIDHEYAN. So first, the chair and the gun. In the very opening frame, a chair and a gun are seen, both symbolizing the power of the Patelar. But if you look carefully, one of the arms of the old chair is missing, is broken, indicating the waning power and influence of the institution of Patelar. By the time 1960, that institution of Patelar is on the decline. The second powerful symbol used in this film is what the Marxist French Marxist thinker, Althusser calls interpellation. So in the opening scene, Patelar calls out to Tommy, Irli Bare Battimagane. So come here, you son of a bitch, he calls. First, Tommy looks behind. Then Tommy responds to the call of Patela. There is an interesting symbolism involved in such calling, such responding. It is called interpellation. The idea of interpellation was popularized by the Marxist philosopher Louis Althusser. For instance, when a policeman hails a person, "Hey, you," that person turns around. The police is a symbol of power. Police is a representative of the law which seeks to dominate and subordinate. This power is also an ideology. For Althusser, ideology interpellates or hails the individual as subject. This is what Tomis does in the opening shot of the VIDHEYAN. He responds to the call by Patela, and he becomes a subject. Third symbol, portrayal of evil. Powerful symbols are used by Adur Gopalakrishnan to portray Patela's character. There's a memorable frame in the film. Patela, sitting in his veranda, leans forward in his chair to speak to someone. Patela's head is superimposed onto the skull of an ox, which is above the door frame. You can see it here in the photo. In this frame, the horns become part of Patela's head. It is a portrayal of devil on his throne. In that one shot, we are given a glimpse into the very soul of Patela. Patela becomes the personification of evil. It's a very beautiful and powerful symbol, I felt. Now, conclusion on servility from an interview given by Adur Gopalakrishnan in 1993 from Indian Express. I've taken this. The film is about power, and in responding to that power, some people invite servility for oneself. Sometimes servility creeps in. Sometimes awareness comes too late, as in the case of VIDHEYAN or Tommy. Some people want to say no, but they lack courage. The dynamic can be present in human relationships between sexes, races, haves and have-nots, and even between the first world and the third world. The dynamic can be present in varied forms in different layers of social life. So this is an important observation made by the director himself, Adur Gopalakrishnan. This is a wider context in which the film is located: domination and subjection. It creates the ambiguity of being and not being oneself at the same time. It becomes easier for the dominator to control and direct the individual. After a stage, it becomes impossible for the servile to separate himself from the oppressor. He becomes part of him. So conclusion, what power does to us? Often we respond to power. Power subjects us to its workings, and power changes us in many cases. Often the dominated totally internalize the values, mores, and cultural myths of the dominator. This we can see very much at work in many, many contexts in India, in political context and in social context. So some questions for discussion for those who are interested. Why do people surrender their freedom? Why do people choose to remain subjugated? How do we respond to power? And what does power do to us? Which internalized values of the dominator can we spot in our own social and political dynamics today? Thank you very much. Can you get back?
Thank you, Sebastian, for the historical background that you gave to the story and the setting of the film, and for raising several interesting questions. It is now open for discussion. Okay, let me begin. Um, the character of when it comes to the characterization in the film, I was wondering whether the character of the Patelar was what E.M. Foster would have called a flat character. No, there is hardly anything good or tender about the way this character has been portrayed. He is terrible, and he is an abominable character, full of himself, using or rather abusing his power in every which way. So, so the character is, like, comes across as totally one-dimensional. And to me, I felt that it did not have the kind of complexity that it had the potential for. So that is something that I thought of while watching and thinking about the film. And another thing I wanted to ask you, Sebastian, is the question of caste. Does caste, although one would think that caste is very much a part of this narrative, as well as class. So how would that, kind of play out? Would that also be one of the factors for that total subjugation, and also the complete surrender of himself, on the part of Tommy? So these are just some of the things that struck me while watching the film. And if anyone else would like to, Sebastian, if you would like to respond, you could.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. We can.
Yeah. Yeah, the first point which you made, the one-dimensional aspect of the portrayal. I just one moment. Yeah. So I've seen several other films of Adur Gopalakrishnan. I thought he deals with his subject rather in a deeper way. Depth dimension is there in many of his films. Now, one of the interviews, what he said, that I'm very flexible, and that this is an adaptation of the novella. No, it's only an adaptation. Now, to what an extent he has managed to go in depth, I'm not very sure about it. But when I went through that, there's a lot of philosophical theme. I could see that. So the depth dimension, I really do not know. I do not know how to respond to your question. In what way that the depth dimension complexity could have been brought about? I thought that there's sufficient degree of complexity. I thought I could be wrong. Secondly, to the regarding the question of caste, Judith Butler's point is very, very pertinent, I feel, in order to understand this passionate attachment. In many places, now those things are going away. There is some sort of a dependency on landlords. In Gujarat, for example, in certain parts, it used to be there, but it is not there now, where certain castes would depend so much on the landlords. and the landlord will provide everything for the weddings and all kinds of things. But it's a kind of symbiotic relationship. So this kind of attachment, even if it works against them, they're still attached. So that aspect is very much in certain dimensions of caste. You can see that thing. Okay, that much only I can say right now.
But here I thought the attachment went beyond, mere economic dependence. It was some
Yeah.
kind of a total surrender of his very subjectivity and, it was emotional
ask something
stability
here?
as well. Yeah,
Sorry.
sure,
Sorry.
sure,
Hi.
Nandini, go ahead,
Hi.
go ahead.
Hi, Sebastian.
Hello.
Hi, this is Nandini from Baroda. Acha,
Yes.
listen, I wanted to actually just go ahead, take this point a bit further of Gita's. One of the, I'd just like you to sort of comment also on the question of religion. Actually, Adur Gopal Krishnan also is very contextually, he sort of locates his films, he chooses stories that actually are historically contextualized. And this particular scene, like you were saying, the context is very specific to a particular region also. It's universal, it's true, but he's talking about a particular region. In that context, the question of Tommy being, from a so-called migrant, he's also, how does one also look at the question of religion here? I'm just wondering, because Tommy apparently is Christian also. He's not, So how does one look at religion? That was one question. The other thing is, how would you read, since you've sort of taken this, you've sort of introduced a sort of philosophical framework to understand the question of civility. I was wondering whether you'd like to, or we could think of a more Gramscian kind of way of looking at this as well. And in the context of hegemony and, how hegemony gets established. So I was wondering whether you could, sort of reflect on that a little bit. And finally, I was wondering, since you sort of looked at the film and you know the context of the film, why was Paul Zachariah so upset with the film? Which he was. He was not happy with the film, and they had a pretty public spat over it. So why do you think that happened? So I just had these three questions. What is your reading of that?
Coming to the last question, I also saw that, Adur's response to that was very brief. He said that he had discussions with Zachariah. But what exactly is the point of disagreement? He doesn't take it very seriously. I have not gone really in detail to this dispute. So I don't know much about it. I did see about that dispute in one of the interviews and things like that. So I've seen it only from Adur's point of view. Okay. I've not seen it from Zachariah's point of view. So that's one thing. Secondly, regarding the religious dimension, he doesn't bring much about it, except that his name reveals that he's a Christian. Other than that, the religious dimension, I don't think plays any important role in this particular film. So it's very difficult to speculate because I've not read the novel also, the Zacharias novel. So I'm not in a position to say anything about this role of religion. Okay. So that's how I would like to respond to your queries. Now, Gramsci's hegemony, definitely we can apply here. But then I thought Althusser's understanding interpellation, even hegemony, all these things we can be read into this film and make it a kind of rich interpretation. Definitely, we can do that.
Yes, MS Murli Krishna,
Thank you.
he has raised his hand. Please go ahead.
Good evening, all. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, I can
Yes,
hear
yes,
you.
you are.
Yeah. Thanks to TFO and also Mr. Sebastian for giving me an opportunity to revisit this film after a long time. Well, I don't think that I have any questions to Mr. Sebastian as such, but I would like to share my takes on the semiotics of this film. May I?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I think I am very much impressed by Ador's ability to construct the scenes or the shots as such. Let me tell that I am referring to the semiotics of the film. I think there are a couple of shots which I want to bring to your attention. In one shot, when Patela walks along with Tommy, he closes the nozzle of the gun or the mouth of the gun. It's called as the nozzle of the gun. And then he sees a woman with hair stalk. He goes to her and closes her mouth with a palm for assaulting her sexually. That shot interested me.
Okay.
Then a couple of shots I'll try to explain. Then yeah, then there is a shot where Tommy and his wife Omna are seen inside their hut. The frame has windows with bars. First, Omna is seen in front of it. Then both are shown in front of that window having bars. Then that the bull shot you have already explained. Then there is one shot which arrested my attention. That was a person comes to Patelar complaining that his wife had eloped with a young man. Bhaskar instructs or orders the man to come near him. Then he thrashes him, blood oozes out.
Right.
The wife requests Bhaskar, that is Saroja requests Patelar not to kill him. Bhaskar tells the wife that you would have thrashed her too, but for the fact that she is a woman. At that stage, the camera veers towards the what you call the door, hostilu. They call hostilu in Kannada. I think Nicola can translate it to English. At that stage, the camera veers towards that. So indicating that she cannot cross the door and come near Patela. I think in a way Adur conveys the stranglehold of patriarchy prevailing at that point of time. So there is another shot where Tommy is sleeping in the house on account of the gunshot injury he suffers from. And his wife Omna comes near him. At that time, viewers can see the red saree given by the Patela in full.
Okay.
On the wire or thread, whatever it's called. Then he wakes and tells Omana that he had seen a dream wherein Saroja Akka strokes his forehead. Okay. Then what he does is, Tommy takes away his hand from the palm of Omana. At that time, the red saree is shown only a tiny bit, only a slender portion of the red saree is seen.
Okay.
Excellent construction of shots, I think. Then there's one more shot. When they go to the temple pond to catch the fish by throwing dynamite sticks, there are two shots that depict Tommy. Trying to, there are two shots that depict Tommy. The third shot shows Patelar. And the fourth shot shows Tommy and Patelar in the same frame. All these 5 shots show failed dynamic sticks thrown in the river. In the end, after the dynamite stick is thrown by Patela, the camera veers to the face of Tommy, where bright light is shown on his face. So viewers are lulled to believe the success of the dynamite stick, but actually the light comes from the torch of Patela.
Okay.
There's the torch at his face. Then in the end, after the nephew of Patelar denies him refuge, both Patelar and Tommy sets off and reach the waterfall spot. Here they eat from the same plantain leaf.
Right.
I think the director Adul Gopalakrishnan indicates in a way, depicts the fall of that boorish Patelar. I think there are many more shots which I can go on describing. It's enough for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Murali, for this wonderful insights and observation about the camera shots. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other responses? Yes, Nikhila, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is coming back to Geeta's point again about the nature of characterization. The idea, Sebastian, about the nature of power and the way in which the dynamics of power, oppression, and submission, the two are somewhat intertwined. So that as an idea is interesting, but I'm not sure how much of it gets executed in the film. I know, I mean, I saw a lot of people and a lot of readings which are also kind of looking at this film in this way. But while watching the film, to a large extent, I felt that this is not getting established very well either through the plot or through the characterization. For instance, this sense, I too had, like Geeta, had this sense that so much of the violence in this character is unmotivated. So yes, it is feudalism on the decline. Yes, it is a way of coping with a certain decline in masculinity, which kind of overcompensates, let's say, by becoming extraordinarily violent or whatever. But somehow within the plot itself, there is a very little motivation offered for any of those acts of violence. For instance, when he beats up, I think his name is Yusuf, one of the characters.
Yes.
So, so little of it seems to make any sense. And also, you mentioned interpellation right at the outset. It also seems strange that the character of Tommy so easily, kind of gets, what shall we say, drawn into the inner circle of the Patelar in no time. So some of these leaps, which kind of seem like gaping plot holes to me. For instance, also the recovery of both after the gun shot injury of Tommy as well as of Patelar. So some of those things, and also this reason offered for killing his wife. I read somewhere that in the novel, the wife is killed because he wants to usurp her property. So there seems to be such plot points which are there in the novel, which have been given the go-by in the film. By itself, I don't have too many issues with, departing from the novel. But I was also reading, and this is a response to Nandini. I'm sure she knows more about the way in which Adur and Zakaria, could not see eye to eye after this film. Apparently, the novelist was unhappy that his film is too much within the framework of a Hindutva discourse. So it seemed like there were certain readings that or discursive frameworks that the film was mobilizing, which were not there or in a different way in the novel. So on the whole, it was not an Adur film. The expectation that one comes with to an Adur film, the levels of complexity in the visual unfolding, that didn't seem to happen to me. I also had one question, Sebastian, which I didn't quite understand. Right at the outset, when Tommy is asked where he is from, there's some talk of land and some 5 acres.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get
Yeah. So
that.
what
Yeah.
happens is that 1950s and 60s, many settlers, especially from Kottayam side, southern Kerala, they had gone to North Kerala and also to this Wayanad, all that area, to Karnataka side. They were occupying land. They are called settlers. So he says, Tommy says that Patelar asked, how much land you got? So this is all illegal occupation of the forest land. So Tommy says that I've got about 5 acres. So then Patelar says, oh, you're not bad. So that's a context. So he has taken 5 acres of forest land, or forest or not forest land. He has got as a settler. He is occupying it. Okay, it's not a bought land. He has not bought it. That's the idea. So this was a common practice in the 1950s and 60s. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if he is a landlord in some ways, has 5 acres, so again, this relationship with...
He is not the landlord.
He's not,
He's
is
not
it?
the landlord. He is not the landlord. That system is totally different. Yeah, they are cultivators.
Landowner, if he owns 5 acres, so...
Yeah. Owns means they may not have the proper records and things like that. Not at that time. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so he's not a landlord. Tommy is not a landlord. Okay, he is just a agricultural, peasant.
Yeah, Thomas has raised his hand. Please go ahead.
For the Sebastian,
Yeah.
Thomas here.
Oh, Thomas.
Thank you for taking us back to this Adur movie. And one of the things that I observed watching this movie is, you look at how power is displayed, in the movie. Starting from the very first scene, Patel is powerful, with his sycophants around him.
Yeah.
He's really powerful when he has
Right.
this cronies around him.
Yeah.
And many other scenes when he's alone with Tommy, his tone is very, very different. And so any comments, observation on how masculinity plays, and then how this power relationship from the aspect of, the other people around him, any
Yes.
comments and observation on that?
Yeah, it's your observation is absolutely right, because it is because of the psychopaths around him that he feels that he's powerful. Okay, so when he loses all this thing in the forest, when he runs away into forest, he loses all his power. So the people around him, to some extent, seems to be giving him a sense of power and powerfulness, etc. Devoid of that, he is powerless, as we see in the last shots, in the forest. So that what you said is absolutely right. So that is another important takeaway from this movie, I feel. Rulers, leaders become so powerful because there are people around them who give them the power, sense of power. Without that, they may not have the type of power they display. For example, Hitler, for example. Okay, That's because of the way, you know, there's a movie, well, there's a film shot, real film. Here, Hitler is entering Vienna, you know, triumphant entry. My God, all these people in Vienna is shouting for Hitler, you know, hail Hitler, hail Hitler. So what you said is absolutely right. The people around him, supporters, followers, they seem also, you know, have a share in this power. Thank you very much for this insight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Rajan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that there's this. There are two things that are important when I saw the movie. That's the chase of the mad dog, and then man comes in and says, "Well, the mad dog ran away," right? So that's a kind of prefiguration of the end where Patyar is killed, right? Yeah, and the chase for him and his jeep and all being burnt is that's prefiguring all that kind of thing. And it's very interesting also in the last scene after he's killed that Tommy has a red and black, a red and white lungi, right, signifying the Victorian idea of death. So I don't know how that comes in with, and he's never wearing a bright lungi like that throughout the film, right? Yeah. So I don't know if it's something that other people think that's got some weight on the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not gone into that detail. Thank you for pointing that out, Rajan. Maybe some symbolism involved over there.
Yeah, there is a question in the chat box by Siddheshwar Kamati. How does VIDHEYAN challenge meta-narratives and binary oppositions between landowner and laborer?
Yeah. So this, it's a rather complicated issue probably, because in I don't remember exactly when it was, 1958 or 59, there was a land reform actually, by which the land was given to the tiller. That was a revolutionary political move by the communists in Kerala, which brought about a huge amount of socio-cultural political changes in Kerala in land ownership. Now, how does that relate to the film? I'm not in a position to speak about.
Murli Krishna has once again raised his hand. Please go ahead.
Mr. Sebastian, sir, I have a
Yes.
question for you about the character arc of Patelar and also Saroja, for instance. Okay, Patelar in the end, after killing Saroja, is shown repenting, I think. He tries to say whether he has recognized, that is Saroja, whether recognized him killing her. That's point number one. And that's a different shade given by the director.
Okay.
And the second is about the character of Saroja herself. There seems to be some kind of finer feeling towards Tommy. Some interpretations are there.
Yeah.
That she has some kind of a softer, this finer feeling towards him.
Right.
A sort of love, maybe called as love, I don't know. So how do you see that?
Yeah, so I also noticed that there's certain tenderness shown towards Tommy, but in what sense it has to be interpreted, I'm not very sure. Okay, it is just probably a brotherly love or whatever that is. Beyond that, I do not know really. Okay.
Nikhila, would you like to speak about what you have put in the chat box?
No, I just to say, I mean, I don't know how to see their relation as landowner and laborer.
Mm.
So in a sense, this hardly seems like a classic feudal film to me, you know, where the relationship is tied around land. This feudal lord is, I don't know. I mean, except drinking in front of the bar, we don't see any, at the huge house that he has, we don't see any marks of, you know, where, I mean, is it in the land? Where does his power come from other than his gun? So is it something that he has to depend on himself? You know, and there is no larger social buttressing of that power. I don't know how to read this relationship. That's why I said, I mean, the film didn't make sense at so many levels to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that observation. Now, in several ways, his power is shown. One of the ways is he acts as a judge. That is one of the functions of this Patelar, as we understand historically. So it doesn't go into details how this landowner, Patelar as a landowner, landlord, how it's only, we are given only glimpses, not in any great detail, but we do have those clues. Then what is required is to join the dots. It is not that Tommy is related to Patelar as landlord and a tenant. No, it is not. It's not. Tommy is an independent, settler. Okay, but Patelar has a kind of, it's an institution actually. It's an institution, which is definitely not shown in great detail, but some glimpses are there. Because he acts as a judge and other things in the type of power, all that kind of thing.
Basav, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Nikhila. Is that like Mrs. Sebastian is also saying, it is. I mean, we see this a lot in North Karnataka also. So I'm speaking a little bit from my personal experience. Is that no matter if you have, if you're no longer have that, it's a legacy power basically. So it's not. You don't have to be in that position anymore, but in the village still you're considered.
Right.
Like Patil rule,
Right.
so you're still the Patel.
Yeah.
No longer you're no longer, British is no longer there, obviously, so your role is no longer there.
Right.
But and the poorer, the other castes or people of other communities in the village might even own more land than you. But even then, kind of power these people wield is just unimaginable. I mean, it's something. It's. I mean, they are always into violence and arbitration of issues, and if there are, sort of fairs or temple, whatever events, they are the ones who kind of decide. Like, for example, in our village, the temple deity comes and sits in our house. The house is completely broken, dilapidated, nobody lives there, but even then, because of the legacy of that, is still there. So I think it starts from, that's why I think that in the film also there is a little, I don't know but there is an intertitle, which says that, which explains the historical context before the first frame, I think, of this Patelar's function. And yeah, and I think Paul Zacaria's issue, as far as I remember from my own conversation with Adur, was to do with whatever the resistance of Tommy is there in the novel is, I think, absent in the film little bit. So that's something he was very upset about, I think. That was one of the many issues that were discussed. I agree a little bit with Nikhila that it is not so convincing. I mean, if I would, even if I want to believe the context, etc., but I think there is the construction of the characters and is not, at least it looks unreal to many people today. It doesn't look convincing enough. For example, that scene of Tommy and Omana that you pointed out, where Omana is crying, and Tommy says, don't worry, I'll take care of Bhaskar Patelar. That's a very little, like one line only, right? So it doesn't really hit home until somebody points out to you and says that, oh, look, she's actually crying for him, but he doesn't. He's responding something else. I mean, it doesn't stay with you unless somebody points points it out to you, I think. So for a regular viewer, it's kind of, it can be such, subtleties can be missed. I feel.
Yeah, thank you, Basu. That's a very important and interesting clarification that you made. Back in 1960s, how things were, many of us may not remember, but I have some memories of the 1960s and things like that. Landlord system was still there in Kerala and other parts. What I've seen in North India and other places. So, Basu, you made a very, very important point about it's an institution actually. May not be, as you rightly pointed out, it may not be seen in the movie, but much of the things are presupposed as an institution of Patelar. Thank you very much.
Any other? I don't know. I'm not sure I can risk as wild a reading as I'm kind of, as I'm thinking more about it. I was wondering if there is some kind of repressed homosexuality in the Tommy Patelar relationship, in the sense that, the way he says, I can smell Patelar's smell on you and I'm liking it. And also the scene towards the end when she's crying for him, but he says, I'm going with the master, and that excessive devotion to him. So I don't know, like I said, probably it's too wild a reading, but it just came to me.
Yeah. I never thought about that actually. Since you said some shades can be interpreted or imputed, I'm not very sure.
Nor
It
am
didn't
I.
come through very strongly though. But that scent actually is the perfume he's referring to. Perfume.
Yeah. Any other responses?
Yeah, could I say something? And
yeah,
Yes.
Rajan, go ahead.
yeah, this is Nandini had asked a question about religion, and we see the picture of Christ in Tommy's house, and when the priests come, Tommy runs away into the jeep and goes, right? So is a power of which he's being succumbed to, right? So powerful that even religion doesn't matter anymore, and he runs away from the priest, and he runs away from any trappings of religion, and is a part of the of his master so important that it overshadows religion.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting and important point, Rajan, what you made.
I think, Geeta, if I may,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
I think
please.
you make a great point, but I think it's also the point comes because we don't see enough emotional connection between Tommy and Bhaskar Patelar, because I think the subject of this psychological study is a little maybe little ambitious, since it doesn't rest on any emotional connection between these two characters. So I guess we go into, then it becomes a little it leads to some speculative imagination, I would like, like this homoerotica that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
And I think that can be said about many Indian films anyways, like sort of from
Yeah.
Sholay to anything, because you always
Absolutely.
have,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. VK Cherian has unmuted.
Yeah. So I think, I think people have gone overboard with the whole thing. Tommy and, because I know the story writer and the filmmaker very personally, let me tell you that they have not put any erotic thing. It is like a slave and the master relationship between Tommy and the Patelar. And once the slave is been totally dominated by the master, the slave began to enjoy it. That's the whole thing. There is nothing erotic about it, And he of course he wants to liberate himself, but he's not able to because of the circumstances.
Right.
Then that towards the end, he doesn't know whether to laugh or cry because his master is gone, dead. No? But the most intricate relationship is between the slave or the Pateler's wife and I'll say Tommy. Because that's the most intricate thing, which I feel it is like, Adur also says, and Sakari also says that Pateler's wife is conceived as the consciousness, whatever is the little consciousness left with
Right.
Pateler.
Yeah.
It is in a last strata. If you see that, the dominating circus wala and the clown, the girl. So it's a kind of relationship. So here, so look for Tommy's. I think the most interesting thing I thought is that Tommy's affection towards the master's wife, and the master's wife is also responding because they both are like dominated by the master, and there is this they are equating themselves, their plights. So that's the most interesting thing. I think one of the this is one of Adu's most interesting films because he has not dealt with human complexities. I think only Anantaram he is left with dealt with more complex situations because this is yet another one. That's the most interesting. There is no erotic between Tommy and this thing. Tommy is totally subservient because of the situation which he is in. If you know the history of Kerala, I'll say Central Travancore migration to the South Canada and the North Malabar region of the farmers in the 50s and the 60s. They're all rich fellows now, So this is, he is getting into that. And Zakaria had a plot of land in South Canada, and he saw the whole thing being practiced or being happening there. I think 30 years back, if I remember correctly. And he has to sell it off because because of a lot of local situations, whatever land he bought there. So it is not I'll say it is a social commentary for both the people, and also, I think and also in the next example of Adu's actor control, I kept telling him, look, nobody has controlled Mammootty and Gopakumar. Gopakumar became a star. He's a star character actor in television series and films in Kerala now, thanks to this film. Otherwise, before that, nobody knew him. That's a kind of strength which his characters bring in. I think in that way, I think when Adu's retrospective happened in the US, the best commentary by the Christian Science Monitor, which I saw in National Archive thing, is on this VIDHEYAN. It takes it to a different plane altogether, So I think the two characters, if you put them, in the social milieu, it's a very, very interesting commentary on that period and the people, desperate moves for livelihood. Tommy is doing all this thing for his livelihood,
Mhm.
not for making his wife happy or something. It's just livelihood.
Yeah,
That's the
survival.
situation. Yeah, survival. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so that is the thing which you have to understand. I don't think when you say about erotica and all these things, I think
Yeah.
I think it goes above my head. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Cherian is making a very important point, I think, regarding the social background, social context of the movie. I think Cherian is made it very, very clear. And also the point Cherian made about Saroja as the conscience. That's also very, very important, where some sort of sanity in all this madness that is going on. That is symbolized by Saroja. So thank you very much, Mr. Cherian. You bring a lot of clarity into the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, Tarkeshwar, you had unmuted. Yeah.
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 Thank you. I think the issues of caste is negligible here because I don't think Tommy belongs to a lower caste. So he is Christian, but I think he is also a tribal. There's a reference to Wayanad and that he has come from Wayanad and occupied some space in the Kodwa region or Kurg region. So in that sense, he's a tribal because he has access to the Patel's house and also to the kitchen because Saroja is feeding him in the kitchen. In that sense, he has access to it. So caste, I don't think has played a role here. Could be, in all probability, could be a tribal who has access to the inner space of the Patel's or Gauda's house. And then the religion is quite interesting, though it doesn't play a major role in the main theme of the film, that is about the power and the subjugation of willing subjugation to the power. But the religion plays a role in the sense that Patel is very clear that he belongs to quote unquote Hindu, and there is an opposition to him by the Christians who are mainly migrants and tribals. And then it becomes important again in the temple and then the legend that is associated with the temple and the fish. They're feeding the fish and they tell that it has an effect on even other religion people. Then this fellow Tommy is startled by it, and then he says that I would like to sorry for thinking in a very different way. But interestingly, Tommy doesn't want to catch the fishes, but the Patel wants to do it. And Patel, being an Hindu, is trying to catch the fish, though Tommy doesn't want to do it, is again helping the Patel unwillingly. But he does that unwillingly, helping the Patel in many of the things, though he doesn't like it. Especially even helping him to quote unquote hang Saroja also. He helps, though he doesn't like it. He asks him, why are you doing it? She's not against you. She's not coming in your way. But again, as Cherian said, Saroja is a kind of conscience that the Patel has to kill. Otherwise, he can't survive. She's always there holding a kind of mirror to him. So he has to kill it. That is quite interesting, I thought, in that sense, religion. Again, the landowner and the laborer, it is not just the landowner and the laborer, he is not a laborer as such. He is, again, as Cherian said, is partaking, is not simply is trying to earn the livelihood. He can earn a livelihood by the 5 acres that he has encroached, but he is willingly submitting himself to the Patel and his power because he is also thinks that he is partaking of that power. So when he speaks to his wife, it is also about the being part of that power of the Patel thing. That is, I think, is the main thing. We might think from the outside that he is a servile, he is a slave, but being there, he thinks that he is partaking of that power, of that institution of Patel. But interestingly, if you look at the pre-independent era, it is not just the Patel, but also there used to be a Kulkarni. And that position is absent in this context. That is quite interesting because generally the Patel used to be a kind of dominant landowning caste of that area. It could be Lingayat, it could be Kunchitiga, it could be somebody else, it could be even a Muslim. In some places, this Patel position holder. So in that sense, the Patel position doesn't have anything to do with caste. But the Kulkarni, the Patil is the police law enforcement agent, but it is actually the Kulkarni who hosts the records. So in that sense, there is to be a kind of balance in power between the Patil and the Kulkarni. But here I think the absence of that, the Kulkarni, the Brahmin force within the village adds some kind of extra force to the Patel. Because when he is adjudicating the cases, there's one case where the woman has run away and she has come back, the husband has brought her back. But there's another case where he wants his land patta to be properly put in place. So in that sense, this Patel seems to be acting in terms of the record holder too, or somebody who maintains the records, who keeps the records too. So in that sense, there is a extra power or an absence of balance of power in the institution there. So he seems to have grown out of the institution, the individual. So there is a power that comes from your position, but he seems to be thinking that the power resides in him as an individual. Of course, as others have said, there is the power also comes because there are people who are watching him executing the power, or he wants to demonstrate the power and he wants people to watch it. So the first scene itself, where he attacks Tommy unnecessarily because he's sitting there, he calls him and he attacks, and also that Muslim merchant is that kind of exhibition of that power, which is necessary things to maintain it. But he forgets that it is part of a larger institutional structure. That's where he errs. And then the other forces within the institution chase him away at the end. I think that was the very interesting thing. And about the context of sexuality, yes, sexuality also comes as a kind of assertion of power. I don't know whether he was sleeping with Tommy's wife, quote unquote, sexually, or with somebody. He's simply exercising the power rather than satisfying his sexual urges. Because his wife and Tommy's relationship, as others have pointed out, is also quite interesting. He openly says, "You like her, no? You like to be with her," and that he is aware of it. The Patel is aware of it, and he is willingly allowing Tommy to be with Saroja, and he also taunts him and makes fun of it. That is quite interesting character. So the psychology of the power, and then willingly submitting himself to the power by the Tommy, I think is the main issue, not the caste and the religion here, and not even the feudal relationship, the land owning and the laborer kind of. It transcends beyond that. Tommy thinks that he's partaking of the power being with him. It, to some extent, it is true. Now nobody is going to question his encouragement of the land, and he is also getting the share in what comes to the Patela, because the Saroja is rejecting some of the things because they are not giving it out of love but out of fear. So that comes to him. So in that sense, that's a relationship is quite interesting. And yes, of course, Gramsci and then Althusser would be a fuse here. But I think there is much more to it than just Gramsci and Althusser in analyzing this relationship between Tommy and the Patela. Thank you. And of course, as Nicola said and Baswa also said, there are gaps in the plot because there is a lapse of time, and that lapse of time is not easily marked in the film, or at least it doesn't come through to us through the subtitles. I don't know about the Malayalam version because so this kind of lapses in the time within the narrative makes us some uneasy. But in spite of that, I think the film projects a kind of power relationship, and then the poetics of this power relationship. I think we need to have a more nuanced theoretical position than simply falling upon either the old Marxist or new Marxist Althusser and Gramsci. So we need to understand it in a different way altogether. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tarkeshwar, for your insights. Only one thing I would like to point out, but you seems to be presuming that Tommy is a tribal. There are no, as far as I know, the tribal Christians I've not come across really. And there is no reason to presuppose that is a tribal. There's no evidence of that. Thank you.
It could be. Thank you.
Any more responses?
Hello.
Yes, Madhurima. Please go ahead.
I had one or two things to say regarding what Gita Mom said regarding the relationship between Tommy and Pateller. I found that the relationship is quite complicated to explain because we can say that Tommy is submissive in all terms and all, but I found that given the socio-political economic situation, I feel he exhibits certain acts of suppressed resistance. Like, for example, when Pateller uses this dynamite in the temple pond. So after the act, the landlord uses this light, flashes the light on his face, and it was almost like the landlord knew that Tommy didn't want it to happen. And there was this other instance when Pateller killed Saroja and asked Tommy if she could understand it was him, and from his hands, and Tommy says, "Who knows? She could have understood." And there was also this another instance where Tommy agreed to bring Pateller to his house where he was supposed to be killed. So this was a very complicated relationship between Tommy and the Pateller. And in the beginning, when Omana was sexually assaulted, then Tommy says that he would kill Pateller. Then he visits the temple, he feeds the fishes, and then he said that, "Forgive me, my thoughts have been strayed." So what was he submitting into? Like, was it his own conscience or was it the landlord? Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but this is what I thought about the relationship. And someone else asked something about the question of Pateller's repentance after Saroja was killed. That is also interesting because Pateller was kind of obsessed to know whether Saroja understood it was him or not. And the conclusion that he comes to is that I should have used Tommy to kill her. So he was not really concerned about the act, but rather who is doing it and whether Saroja is able to understand it is him or not. So thank you for the discussion. Quite interesting.
I think Madhurima has got to what the filmmaker is thinking, because I had a series of interviews with Adur on each of his films. So one of the things which he said on this relationship between Tommy and this thing is that, he wanted to portray Tommy after being overpowered by him and also threatened him about the land and of his own wife. So he, Tommy has become totally a slave kind of thing. But Tommy equates himself with, because he likes the wife. It's like both of them become a conscious thing with him. One is proper one. The other one is a shadow consciousness of Patelar, and which he become when Patelar was fleeing from the brother-in-laws after the killing of the wife. And Patelar keeps asking him, is it, what Madhurima said, is it, did she know that I did this? Did she know that I did it? So that whole thing he's asking Tommy, not, because Tommy by then become kind of, almost replying on behalf of his wife kind of thing. So I think that it's the complexity has brought it very well, but I think it's all about the master slave, the dominance of the male ego, as they say, and its manifestation in various things. That's what is I think the theme of when we all read the Zachariah's novelette first time. That's what we all felt. Then Adur gave an interpretation, and especially on that the night sequence where they go to kill the fishes. When it was released, a lot of people said it is Adur is becoming a Bhakt or a Hindutva activist, because he's saying that because of the power of the temple, the bomb didn't go about. So I asked him, Adur, what is this controversy? What is your point? He says it's about belief. It is about belief, which Tommy is a believer in certain things, and while Patelar is not. So Patelar can, though he's a Hindu, he can afford to do that. But being a believer in whichever god it is, Tommy is little uneasy about what Patelar is doing. So he said that, look, it's a believer which is winning there. That's what he wanted to. So it's not a Hindutva thing, or it can be a Christian church, something happened there, but it's about belief. Somebody believes in something, and you need to respect that. That is the whole message. In fact, it became a controversy between the writer and the director on this point. But I think people reconcile to the fact that the belief part of it, it's not just religion, it is the belief of individuals. You need to respect that, whether it is Hindu or Christian or Muslim. So that's what that was the theme of that sequence. That's what Aru says. So I think that way, that is the whole complex relationship, comes out very well, especially towards the end. That's what he shows, that the slave is freed by the killing of the master, but the slave is also sad, as well as he is very happy that he is free. So you can't make out what is the kind of emotion which he's going through. He's just running away from the scene. So I think he is talking about the complexity of the human relationship more than anything else. That's what my reading is.
Thank you, Cherian. I just want to share something. When I was preparing for this and I sent the brochure, one of my friends said, "Oh, Sabi, this is 30-year-old movie." So I replied him saying in a message, Shakespeare's Macbeth is more than 500 years old. It's still taught in the schools and colleges, universities. In the same way, this VIDHEYAN for me is a classic. See, when I'm from Kerala, so when I look at the movie, I find it extremely interesting. There's a depth of character, depth of the social, the complexity, So that I find the film really interesting and complex. I feel the relationship that Cherian, what he beautifully brought out, the social setup and the relationships. So probably in Malayalam, I'm coming from that background, so probably it appeals to me a lot. The first movie I saw with Adur Gopalakrishnan is Kodiyattam. It is a fascinating, interesting movie. It was, yeah. So that's my feeling about the movie. I consider it a very beautiful, profound, in-depth film. Thank you very much.
Any more responses?
Yeah, one interesting thing, if you look at Adur's 12 films, which I happened to talk to him in the last 1 year. Each of the films for about 30 minutes. I told him bluntly that, look, after Vidheyan, his creative innovation, what I call, is got played out. Because if you look at films up to Vidheyan, he's been very aggressive creatively. He's put a lot of things in his films which are like, there's a mention about Kodiyattam. Kodiyattam is all about life. If you can show it for generations, or even in history. If somebody wants to know what is the social milieu of Kerala in let's say in 60s, that's Kodiyattam, because he puts his films are, as Tarkovsky said, it's a sculpting in time of the period which he's handling. All the details, all the behavior patterns, all the human situations, everything. So Vidheyan comes in a different way. It's like, migration in Kerala comes out in very many things. The last thing, which is about migration to, to Gulf. There's a film which is coming in, I think, getting released, called God Life. So migration is an interesting thing in Kerala, because every second person in Kerala migrates to outside. Every family has somebody who has migrated. So this is a takeoff, on that, and how those people who have migrated, they go through their, life and travails, and the pains of life. And of course, they all want to get out of the situation, but they're caught in their situation and an immediate situation. So I think that way Adur makes. I told him it's about the what you call the you submit yourself to survive. So it's a submissiveness which has crept in for all the migrants across the world, because you go to US. You know that you are a second class citizen, but you enjoy being there. So that kind of situation, which in a way, I think Adur puts it here. He goes to South Canada from Wayanad, where he couldn't make a proper livelihood, but he goes there. But he is willing to take all the shit, because he wants to survive and have a life. So this is something which is at one level very adorable, at other level it is very inhuman too. So going by the experience of the individual. So I think this whole contradiction of migration also comes in this thing, in this film, as I see it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cherian. Any more responses? Okay. If there are no more responses, questions, then we will bring this session to an end. Thank you very much, Sebastian, for introducing this film and leading the discussion. Thank you all for logging in. It's been an interesting evening. See you next Saturday, and have a nice Sunday. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, Sebastian.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
See you next
you.
week.
Good night.
Right, good night.
Thank you.